Hello, America and modern nations. Each modern nation's identity of the ground, locations, areas, and the states. The sciences and database relationships since before computers. They were a part of this ancient republics and it's of its systems like the campus Marcius, intercampuses, as a science that valued how and why. We are individual grouped in together. Species identity of volume/S. For example, the cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall/S. As an identity together. As identities apart. As identity/S. As a quality of diffusion. As temporary positive. That is as a quality of diffusion making where more and more temporary/lasting positive that is also further positive or negative to itself, where identity is positive, is negative, and is their conjunction to itself, and with the value of that simultaneously, as the value of that simultaneously too. It is where and how one identity of volume is making more of its identity of value/value progressions. It is making more of the identity of what is at least equivalent to the identity of the body of forever, as what is also more finite than three identities of zero and greater than infinity, as what is making more and more forever natures. And nature is always greater than infinity. Its complete identity is where and how not one person is the complete identity that is simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly itself, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously itself as individuals, why we are individuals, how we are individuals, as groups, not just sexes, locations, areas, ages. Difference itself is a demonstration to us of one identity of volume, one identity of definition, of distinction, of difference that is inseparable from and as the value as nature/nature as value of all other values, of all other value progressions. There are 5 distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identities of value/value progression that are simultaneously 1/3/5. For example, this is where and how my doctor, the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall are manifest. Also with the identity of sequence nature that is with and as the increasing value of how the cells, walls also connect, revealing the body of value, discernment, not just physically, but not just metaphysically, but this identity of volume as value as nature/nature as value. English is revealed to be taught as volume science, and in theory to come off science, even where there has to be simultaneous. And that is a nature of science, evolution science. That's where we have to separate subjects. We don't leave out exceptions in exception nature. We are led by the identity of exception. The identity of truth that is also as all exceptions, as all exception nature. Truth. See, there are criminal insidiousness nature is going to quote truths and use truths, premises as lies in relationship to criminal insidious natures like wrongdoers, like people who commit predicate acts, who cover them up, sequence shifts, names forging, switching, identity theft, frauds, How come the whole time, since through lifetimes, whenever anyone brings up any kind of topic related to the predicate acts delivery system method leveraged against our founding parents and against black people sickly distinctly, to make see that is used to keep the science of it. How come when the counters of it are always still in collusion with it, fact, treatment, nature oriented wise, preventing it admitted the predicate acts delivery system method against all locations, let alone their inhabitants, and that reveals that and how they were really for such things and rolls with it. So when they're attributing those motivations and rolls offensively through lifetimes, forcing the only thing that to be heard is it's blamed on prejudice or racism, with passions and emotions dishonestly, and with that defended, that can't simultaneously defend itself, its treatments of positive and negative simultaneously, and us from what exploits them, and that as their standing identities of criminal insidious nature, as their live progressions in relationship to each identity of the ground's locations, conjunction to our quality of fact treatment nature as correlation nature, as what is native pure, inherently actively and progressively, as what is really the value of sequence true before the order of the finite, while as the order of the finite, note distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, one identity of value/value progression, invisible, is still discernible because of its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself. How it is 5 semi-natures is simultaneously in demonstration of how it has a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself. How it has 3 bonded natures. It is 1/3/5 bonded natures. So those are 3 values. But simultaneously the slashes count also. So in other words, then we have the identity of the sequence nature that's bringing up water and oxygen and or carbon dioxide for a plant, and taking out expelling oxygen as waste to the plant. We're supposed to discern this identity of sequence nature. We are supposed to discern nature's identity /S, the 1/3/5. That is the identity of truth, that is 5 identities of sequence nature simultaneously. Sequence true, the order of the finite, not the slightest exception denied. What is active, progressive, and identities, semi-nature, complete nature, relationship to itself, which is where and how we are individual, grouped, and together. We are individual, complete nature. One complete nature can't be our complete nature, but it can be the simultaneous value of every single thing at once, positive or negative, to earth distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, in relationship to its, and as its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself. And so when we stay other value nature systems, further and further we stay fact treatment nature justifications of that, styles that are premise treatments, usages relied on, sequence treatments relied on, finite active progressive fact treatments relied on, evidence treatments relied on, identity treatments relied on. That's time treatments relied on, originally and still used always where there was collusion with a predicate acts delivery system method that forced alter roles since before our founding parents were born, who had to hide their roles with putting up the surface values of the Constitution and making people say they were going to take part of that, and then having to defend themselves because of the breaching method that had laws and database relationships already having been sustained through lifetimes, propagated to roles of evil and of fake care and collusion with a predicate acts delivery system, what is a particular nature of criminally foreign influenced locations, areas, and states. That is originally instilled, that methodically juxtaposed all the other formal interbranch, other nations, the same thing. Intersciences, interdatabase relationships, a whole bunch of identities of criminal insidious natures of jobs and titles and people A through Z, Native Americans A through Z, no longer defending what they no longer had, defended, because they had breaching screens, tools, weapons, worse, still entrenched, because our founding parents didn't have free speech. See, they did damage control to what people, how the breaching method had to lie through our own, which it had perfect control over. So our founding parents had to hide life by saying the words that they forced everyone to say, being and saying the theater that they forced everyone to be and say. That is a theater as criminal insidious in its nature. So we're going to treat the predicate acts delivery system method as an archetypal criminal enterprise. A criminal enterprise is something that needs to be discerned in relationship to interstates and into intercities. Worse than just criminal foreign influences, and worse than just the motivations originally and still claimed when they counter interstates known and further overt criminal enterprises. What really most overtly and simultaneously insidiously furthers them is their roles with this all identity ground locations, all database relationships, kept needing to hide lies and lie progressions, kept needing to self-value each identity of the ground's correlation natures. Identities, every single one of them, separated from which each age distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously was supposed to be. Difference for. So, experience is sick. They can't speak for what is native pure, because no one's speaking for what some. We're going to take positions and counter positions because the sciences each have theory offensively arranged to keep self-valued roles with all locations, areas, and states. What really most furthered the overt criminal enterprises is where and how the branches of government, all database relationships, private simultaneously, even private that has nothing to do with each other, and intersciences and those databases further, from off those locations originally. It propagated people and needs to self-value and style self-valuing, sequence shifts, identity thefts and frauds, and methods of such, and motivations of such, and roles with such. With this archetypal criminal enterprise, this breaching method, put the branches of government in collusion with all that private, hundreds of nations shared here, there, pretending they have integrity. They don't have integrity. How could they have integrity? Science didn't speak for one location, let alone those most forsaken. That needs to keep off campuses and on campuses self-valued. The reason that everyone doesn't have the answers of evolution, the most simple answers, a predicate acts delivery system method, tactically juxtaposed natures of evil and or of organized crime and or of worse than war crimes were bonded upon all locations, areas, and states in a way that would make negative value nature progressions acts and natures that they knew that they would have to counter everyone. So we're in a semi-ancient trap. When they make opinions about the difference between religion and science, it is because the religions, as they have been claimed practical by the campuses, the physical locations, physical identities of science, /s. See, they have that with physical delusions that defend it, that are categorically and are sequentially arranged where and how they have the same thing, sickly distinctly, where our logic experts, people associated with mental health, and the evaluation of people, they're involved with the fabrication of audio and video originally and still. They're involved with identity thefts and frauds. It's not by accident that only racism or prejudice is allowed to be blamed for slavery, so they can perpetually pretend to be against what they are furthering, which is worse than lacks of needs for immediate reliefs and means to them. So we have doctors, for example, with the coronavirus, that are incapable of fathoming what to do and what to say about the logistics of what should we do with this virus. It's very dangerous because it floats and stuff. And because our economy is tied to that torture method that went along with that which was sustained, which was slavery, which is not by accident. All the slavery laws that weren't called slavery, but they were just laws against what everyone could say, and forcing them to say things and be theater. And if they tried to speak up against that, they would be seen in layers short of having any kind of support. So everyone would make allegations against people. So our branches of government and the other branches of government, they self-value fake difference because they've been defending themselves against themselves and against ourselves while being and having been used remotely since before computer definitions of remote, before electronic definitions of remote. We are a value/value progression. We are as an identity of the ground, identity of relationship to itself that is a native pure system. And so the physical Native Americans, their value/value progression becomes hyper positive. Because it is a quality, it is an identity of relationship too. While as our fact treatment nature, no matter who we are, especially if we're Americans, regarding Native American. Regarding, if you want to treat slavery, you have to treat that method that tortured and forced everyone to roll with this. You have to treat how they used everything positive and negative inclusion against us. like things we need for systems to be safe and stuff like zoning laws. They had that originally instilled. Everything we need to be, ensure security. For example, a mutually insured destruction. Uses of that phrase are recorded people in collusion with that which is here, there, fake sides. Maintenance to what is fluent through our nations. You'll see in Russia and in America, they have the same pathology of homes since before cars. In the suburbs, their nature, they're all different exception, nature, and demonstration of the same thing. Breaching method applied. Uses of the identity thefts and frauds of our founding parents and of theirs. And that's self-valued when they fight with each other. As nations that were never a unity here or there, but as criminal and seditious natures of unity. Our founding parents wanted us to have this explained to us, and they wanted us to understand this. So it's alright if people want to debate things, but follow mandated law outside of courts. That is, it is recorded evidence how they don't follow mandated law outside of courts. There were a whole bunch of people from Trinity College who recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that people from my town are involved with predicate acts on and off Trinity College and on and off CCSU and on and off other campuses of each age and nature, like Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University. Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and Central Connecticut State University is in New Britain, Connecticut. Now the same House/S has Wethersfield Police involved with wire crimes with them. Also with judges and prosecutors and with their family members. Involved with investigations and with investigators and with investigations of that in collusion with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones. And with what bonded that. And what maintains that. And where it was already maintained self-valued effectively. On off all database relationships from off campuses. So this is where we have different natures of police forms involved with our regular police. They have fact treatments where they use the police, and they use the word criminal or citizen, even citizen. They use those words /values criminally. Voting. They are criminally foreign influence, breaching screens, tools, weapons. They were separated from the answer/S proper when they were youngest kids. Because of this, how this is maintained off campuses in a way and per a method that knew that they could keep it on off all database relationships, all positions of sophistication. Needed to value where and how and why, really. People pretend they're with legitimate press questions. People pretend that they're with legitimate lawyer and law treatments, interbranch. Individually grouped and together, they are recorded distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Crime methods manifest. For example, evidence racketeering, evidence thefts and frauds roles. As victims, in relationship to what keeps and kept, juxtaposed natures of worse than just organized crime, bonded upon all locations. Again, they go to school and they come off. They need those what really is the problems, what really are the limitations with the human fact treatment nature, with unities, with disunity. They are simultaneously valued. There is the overt/insidious method of pretending people are negative when they speak about the negative. If you don't speak only positive about news agencies, they're recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed influence to pretend they take it personal. Because science, they're pretending they don't understand science. Because they're involved with sequence shifts, which will reveal that how they've been involved with fabricating audio and video with their interbranch. That is kept by foreign. So they have to defend it where and how we are captive entities, modern nations where we are in the victim, where we were forced to entertain and take part with value nature systems that were designed for not anyone to be able to afford, individually grouped or together, anything other than the pathology of infrastructure and of means to it, and as quality of the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself that is value native pure, which is relevant that way because of how it is an increasing identity of value. Genesis, for example, is about, most probably, demonstrably, per science, is about a particular identity of generation, particular type of generation. When I say particular nature of generation, that means that it's a particular identity of volume as a particular identity of generation. Each identity of volume has a distinct identity of relationship to itself. It has the distinct increasing value of that positive or negative in relationship to Earth's temporary/lasting difference in relationship to the rest of space nature. Note here, where there are 365 days in a year, note where and how 3 years is 1,095 days. So our quality of diffusion is 1/3/5. Identities of volume/S that are simultaneously positive together at the same time simultaneously, or there are more and more negative value nature being made, which is forced from Earth's temporary/lasting difference in relationship to space nature, the rest of space nature, where it is the same possession is possessed by the same identity of value/value progression. So then we are forced from here as negative value nature, relationship, nature as identity, to itself as perfect memory. So Leith of Hades is forced space nature transfer per me, YouTuber Anthony Wall. I also didn't read or see anywhere on YouTube of this about yin yang, but I'm going to tell you what is most probable the ancients would say about yin yang. They would teach that yin yang cannot be parted, and that alpha and omega, all exceptions in exception nature, are in demonstration of the same thing. For example, if someone would ask, if yin yang cannot be parted, and if male is yang, and if female is yin, but yet they have two different bodies, they are two different people, two different individuals, two different groups. No, even though we are one species. And then the ancient teachers would say, that's exceptions in exception nature. And demonstration of, in other words, what's going to be positive or negative to itself, the identity of value/value progression, that we don't have to agree on the name of it. But we have to use a name for the scientific identity of value/value progression it is. So Allah's name was revealed with English. For example, proof of it is how this can be used to teach English. making more sense, and where how it could be taught more, answers could be answered more properly. Allah's name, for example, to teach about each letter of the English alphabet stands for a letter. I mean, each letter of the English alphabet stands for a word. And each word it stands for simultaneously spells out a sentence. And this is also about the identity of those words. So, word, walls, omega, rises / raises, diffusion. We are a quality of diffusion, positive or negative. This is volume science. There is volume theory associated with this. But volume theory as it has been conceived and or how it has been used through media and through news and journalism and the theory of evolution, they are being used for sequence shifting styles defended that simultaneously need to defend that are simultaneously uses of criminally foreign influence premises treatments and sequence shift self-value, physical delusion, self-value, identity thefts and frauds, self-value, originally instilled. See, we have people needing to pretend other where they're involved with the fact, treatment, nature-oriented predicate acts roles, leveraged against all locations, let alone our most forsaken. So they need they need quality of fact, treatment, nature, worse than obfuscated on-off campuses distinctly, non-distinctly. And a breaching method knew that they would self-value means to keep that self-valued, worse than obfuscated, on-off campuses, lipoaggressions, pretended not realized, and pretended legitimate for legitimate reasons covered up. Even when that's true, nothing is legitimate. There never were sophistication that wasn't used remotely. So we have worse than criminal incompetence with the conviction natures and the opinion natures of our experts. So we have to have them follow mandated law. And how they can't and why they can't has to do with exploitation. In other words, there are styles of roles with there's breaching screens, tools, weapons that were never separated from it as the value with all locations, areas, and states. In relationship to that breaching method that forced things like with slavery, specifically then, so specifically now, they could effectively measure and maintain all positions of sophistication, fighting to keep that predicate acts delivery system method obfuscated for other motivations, natures, needs, interests, physical delusions. It's not politics. They don't know how to speak about anything. They self-value that having been. They self-value the people with the worst, most overt / simultaneously insidious intercampuses of each age and nature. Even private schools are in collusion. They have the identities of the locations of all the individuals sucked into their roles with predicate acts on off the public schools. Narratives put into databases tied to interbranch that have been fabricating audio and video in cases with other nations doing the same there too. Listen when they talk. They need to hide behind you with their arms around you as the fake integrity of positive treatments as criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments, in collusion with the overtly sick and the insidiously sick. People and opinions most hurting the people of all locations, let alone of our most forsaken areas. To counter that, we have to be that quality of fact treatment nature that is not separating areas. It is leaving out how that predicate act system method is in all areas, sickly distinctly. For that method to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. Because that is highly positive. To be attacking that negative tied to all other negative nature progressions, acts, natures. And this already invested, originally and still. All identities of law incapable of defending themselves and of affording the short words of anyone to allowed uses of our inherent active and progressive means by free speech while continuing to pretend to